Hey, folks, good morning and welcome to another episode of Steelers Morning Rush. I'm Alan Saunders. It is Tuesday, September 17th. We're going to talk to Mike Tomlin this afternoon, about the Pittsburgh Steelers and their Week 3 matchup with the Los Angeles Chargers, and also recapping their Week 2 win over the Denver Broncos. And I want to talk about something that I saw this week, and I know Zachary Smith saw it as well. We talked about it on the Steelers postgame show, and that is the fans that think that TJ Watt gets held on every play. And as good as I think TJ Watt is, and as much as I would like to tell you that's the case, it's just not. And in fact, I think there's an entire misplaced knowledge about the holding penalty in the NFL, and this idea that you can call holding on any play. You really can't. Holding is actually a fairly narrow rule, and I think it's one that people don't really understand. So first, let's talk about what holding is, and then I'll talk about why what you see happening to TJ Watt very often isn't. Holding has a 3-part rule to be called for a penalty. The first is that the offensive player has to be using an illegal technique. And there's a list of them. I'll list the common ones. You can't grab the jersey. You can't encircle the opponent, meaning you can't block around their body from where you are. If you're on the front of the defender, you can't block behind his shoulder pads, okay? You can't grab or pull a body part. So if you're trying to get away, I can't grab you by the arm and pull you back. Right, those are the most common illegal techniques that are associated with the holding penalty. Either grabbing the jersey or the shoulder pad, the helmet, the hair, an arm, something. You're grabbing and pulling and holding, or you're encircling. Your arms are on the other side of the body from where you are, and you can't do that. So but every time you do that, that's not holding, okay? Now, the major exceptions for holding that are written into the main part of the rule are that the defender has to be actively trying to get away. So if I'm a big defensive tackle and my entire responsibility on this play is to occupy the guard, like that's all, they just want, like, hey, your linebacker's blitzing. All I want you to do is make sure that guard doesn't go anywhere and doesn't block anybody else. So if I go into the guard goes into me, we just stand there. It does not matter if the guard has 2 fistful of jerseys. If I'm not trying to get away from him, it's not holding, okay? I have to be trying to escape. I have to be preventing the defensive player from going somewhere he wants to go. And then the third element is it has to be impactful for the play. So if the quarterback releases the ball, or even if the quarterback is just about to release the ball and there's a holding penalty occurring on the other side of the field 15 yards away, then that should not be flagged, because it didn't matter. That player was not getting to the quarterback anyway. If there's a run that goes up the middle and is a 0-yard gain, and the wide receiver's holding on the outside, shouldn't be a penalty, because that cornerback was never going to make that tackle anyway. He's never going to be involved in the play. And so that's the main 3 elements of holding. You have to use an illegal technique. You have to prevent the defender from going somewhere he wants to go. And it has to be impactful for the play. But you say, all those things happen to TJ Watt on a daily basis. And that is true. The reason that, most of the time you're going to see people say TJ Watt was held and it's not holding, is that there are 2 exceptions written into the holding rule. The first is on a double team block. On a double team block, only the outside players are liable for holding. So if all I'm doing is preventing you from getting over to my teammate who is also blocking you, I can hold you from going to the inside of a double team block. I can't hold you from going around my outside shoulder, right, to get away from it. But if you just want to go hit that guy instead of me, not holding. The second is there's a very specific technique that outside defenders use called a rip move. And basically, you can do whatever you want if the defender uses a rip move, with another exception. So what's a rip move? A rip move is when the defender uses his inside arm, strikes with one arm at the chest plate of the offensive tackle, and is trying to insert his body between the 2 arms of the offensive tackle, and then use his speed and momentum to just power through that outside arm. Okay. A lot of times that means the offensive linemen have their hands out. The first strike comes in here with that inside arm. And then the next thing that happens is the body of the defensive player comes with that second arm straight across his chest. Okay. We see TJ Watt use this all the time. I'm going to try to show you some stills here. Let's see how this works. because I've never done this before. And we'll see how it goes. So here we have TJ Watt setting up a rip move. And actually, he didn't necessarily do a particularly good job of it right here. He would like that chest strike to be down on the chest and not up on the shoulder of this Cincinnati Bengals tackle. But you can see how Watt's right arm, his inside arm, is in between the two arms of the Bengals defender, and his momentum is going to take him into that outside arm of the Bengals offensive tackle. And so that is setting up for a rip move. And then you're going to see the sort of classic, oh my gosh, TJ Watt is being held look that we see so often. Let's get another one up here. Here, Watt is trying to fight through that outside arm and see how he's kind of undercutting it. And often you'll see this called a dip and rip because the defender will kind of duck their head down as they try to get under that inside arm. Outside arm of the tackle. And then you end up in kind of the classic pose for a dip and rip holding situation, and that is here. Watt has his inside arm up underneath the shoulder armpit of the tackle, and the tackle has his right arm elbow bent right in TJ's throat, basically. This is what happens when the defender uses a rip move, and this is very specifically written as an exception to holding. Right now, this Bengals player can break all of those rules that we just talked about because Watt has put himself in this situation. This is the Bengals player did not put him here. Watt put himself there. And so you can actually see that I have multiple times of photo evidence of what would normally be holding, and it's not going to be holding because of the usage of the rip move. Here's one against the Cardinals last year. Clearly, look at where the Arizona player's body is compared to TJ Watt. His right arm is on the other side of TJ's body. So this would be encirclement. This is an illegal technique. Clearly, Watt is trying to move forward. This should be holding, except TJ used the dip move, the dip and rip to get there, and so it's not holding. Here's one from that New England game last year, I think it was. Oh, no, Tennessee. Tennessee game last year, where literally I have a still, thanks to Ed Thompson, Steelers Now photographer. He's literally holding on to TJ's jersey, and it's not holding because Watt used a rip move. The rip move is a specific exception to the holding rule, and therefore it's not holding. Now, the one time that holding is allowed to be called after the usage of a rip move is if the defender is tackled to the ground. If you still can't tackle a guy. But other than that, you can do pretty much whatever you want, and it's not holding. So that's why when you see Watt in a chokehold coming off that left edge, it's not going to get called for holding. And it's not that the refs are bad at their job, and it's not that they hate TJ Watt. It's that he has probably the best rip move in the world, and he uses it a lot, and that move cannot be called for holding under most circumstances. The other thing about, holding is a fairly narrow penalty. Like, as I said, on the inside, it's really hard to get called for holding because the defender has to be trying and able to get away from you. If you're a defensive tackle in a lane and you have another player just off your shoulder, I can hold you because there's nowhere for you to go anyway. You can't get away. So you can't be trying to get away, so it doesn't matter. This idea that there are like hundreds and hundreds of uncalled holding penalties in NFL games is just completely wrong. I call them out from the press box as I see them. I maybe see 3 or 4 or 5 a game. But it is not this like, oh my gosh, you could always call holding if you want to. That's just not the case. It's actually a fairly narrowly defined penalty, and it really doesn't happen all that often. And the rip move is really popular, and it's gaining popularity. And as it gains popularity, more and more people are going to think that should be holding, and it just isn't. So that's one of the reasons that you'll see Alex Highsmith use what's called a ghost move, where he looks like he's going to rip, and then he just brings his arms down and runs straight through. it not only does it make the offensive player miss time their strike, but it lets you be held. And like what the rip move does, where you come into the player's chest and then try to go through his arm. Hopefully that cleared some stuff up for you. If you have any questions about this, let me know in the comments, and we'll get back to talking about this week's Steelers team and the Chargers and all that as we go through this week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss an episode of Morning Rush, Afternoon Drive, Sights and Sounds, any of the rest of the stuff we have going on here on the Steelers Now YouTube channel, or if you're listening somewhere else, leave us a 5-star review. I'll be back with another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive with Zachary Smith after we talk to Mike Tomlin. We'll see you then.